I'm your friendly backyard non-certified mechanic.
Oh shit!
Mike, you killed your battery. We're gonna have to jump the damn truck. Is it obvious yet that I'm not a mechanic? Okay, so here's the dealio. We got a truck, but it needs a lot of work. So, Mike, what truck is this again?
This is a 1995 GMC Sierra SL. It's got the 4.3 liter Vortec V6, two-wheel drive. It's got about 168,000 miles on it, and it needs some work.
Yes, we've really got our hands full with this one. So why not talk about what all needs to be done? Because here's the thing. We've already done some of the electrical work. Not a whole lot. Basically, the tail lights, the brake lights, the hazard signals, all that really wasn't working. But luckily, that was fixed with just a relay that needed to be replaced and a bad fuse.
Couple relays, couple bulbs.
Well, it was one relay. It was the hazard light relay. The guy who owned this before us had specifically an LED relay in there, so the
and then we had a couple fuses as well.
Yeah, so the resistance on the relay was not proper for the incandescent bulbs we were using. So right now we're just taking care of some basic maintenance things. So Mike, why don't you bring it over? Show everyone what we got here. So first off, it's a carbureted engine. Nothing fancy, you know. The air filter that's been in there, we have no idea how long it's been in there, but it's kind of trash. Little Wix filter going on here.
And if you got a 95 or older, if you get the Wix filter, possibly the number you'll be getting most likely is a 42088.
And Amazon Basics oil, because Amazon Basics for your everyday needs. So 5W30, nothing special. We got a Mobil 1 oil filter because, look, man, there's probably a lot of gunk in that engine, and hoping the detergents and the oil help break off some of that gunk. And hopefully the filter traps the gunk.
Yeah.
Only one way to find out. But realistically, we're not doing anything too heavy. That being said, there's certain upgrades to the truck that I think are worth mentioning. Mike? Want to show them what we got?
Oh yeah, we got ourselves an HID replacement headlights.
Now, it's worth noting about these HIDs, we are not just throwing HIDs into a standard reflector housing. That's not how we roll. This is a proper projector designed for HIDs to focus the beam, and yes, we're going to aim the beam properly. There's some work to be done on that, but we're going to aim the beam properly. It's a really basic setup right now. It's got like the kind of free kit that comes with it. Eventually, we'll be upgrading the HID and the ballast and the igniters and the connection and everything to Morimoto, but for right now, we're just trying to get this truck a little bit better than it was before. This wasn't all that expensive. It was like $70 for like both headlights, which is really not that bad. So long as you got in the proper housing and you're using the proper light for the proper housing and you aim it, we're not assholes.
But to remember, back then, well, compared to now, 90% of the vehicles on the road, maybe 98% at this point, don't have sealed beam headlights, which is a complete different of what it used to be, where you talk about 70s, 80s, early 90s, you had sealed beams.
Yeah, so in case you're wondering what that means, sealed beam headlights, you're going to see them everywhere in vehicles. They're a very standardized size and form factor. It's these guys right here. Now, these just use simple built-in halogens. When the bulb goes out, you replace the entire headlight housing. That's just how these are designed. Obviously, the aftermarket stuff is a little nicer, so we are going to take that as we go. Probably the first thing we're going to do is swap out the headlights, get that properly set up so we can drive this thing at night, because it is getting dark, but we're a couple of night owls ourselves, and you know, being able to see on the road at night is probably not half bad of an idea. So let's get cracking. First thing we're going to take care of is the easiest thing to take care of. That's the air filter.
Now, air filter on these vehicles bolt directly to the carburetor. And sorry, we don't have much room right now because it's an 8-foot bed and the garage is pretty small.
Yeah, the struggles. So I'm going to do some camera work here while Mike takes things off. I'm going to zoom in on what he's doing here. So as you can see, there's just two little plastic knobs that hold the top of the carburetor, well, where the filter goes on the carburetor. And he just unscrews those, and then we're going to take it out. We're going to take a look at that dirty old filter because, do you know when the last time this thing's filter's been changed?
By looking at the paperwork that was left in the truck when I bought it, it looks like it was changed out just last year.
A lot of things can happen in a year, and might as well replace it anyway. Now, the hat to this is kind of a pain in the butt, or at least it was, because when we first tried to remove it, it was just stuck on, and we had to pry it open, but let's take a look here. So obviously fuel and air mixes in the carburetor.
Oh yeah.
And before any air gets to that mixture, we got the filter here. So let's take a look at the difference here. You know, this one's, I mean, they both have a metal mesh outline to give it structural rigidity. There are way more pleats on this one, so there's a lot more capacity to filter, but also more capacity to, you know, get clogged up. That being said, I'd rather a good filter than anything.
Yeah,
so
it might also be a little bit more restricting as well.
Just a tiny bit, but honestly, there's some vacuum pressure to be had.
Yeah.
So we'll just slide it on where it goes on, and probably one of the easiest filter changes you could end up doing on a truck. You know, this truck's old, you know.
It's only 95.
I mean, to be fair, an air filter is probably one of the easiest things. Anyone can do an air filter, honestly. An air filter
well,
is...
anyone that's competent.
Well, the amount of competence required to do an air filter is pretty low. As long as you have some idea where it is and you undo all the plastic on whatever modern vehicle you got. Simple enough, right? Okay, so... Step numero uno, clean air to the engine. The next thing we're going to do really quick is fix the headlights. So we do have the headlights working for the most part here, and they're just the standard halogen sealed beam headlights that, you know, a lot of these trucks have. Now here's the thing. When we started out with this truck, the previous owner had cut the wires off, spliced in his own little LED headlights, you know, those cheap kits you get. And he didn't leave us with much, so we had to resolder some H4 connections back to where it was before. We went to the junkyard, got the wires, you know, I mean, granted, yeah, wires are not that expensive, but we were going for the junkyard for a lot of things that day, figured we might as well just grab some set. Splice those wires together and, you know, soldered, shrink wrapped, all that good stuff, and then, well, thankfully, it worked. That being said, there is one component we did not put in, and that is a spring. Let me hand me the spring real quick. So,
I only see one.
I know, there's just one spring. So each side has a spring, right? And this spring gives tension to the headlight, which allows us to adjust it using the headlight aligning bolts that make it go up, down, left, right, etc. So we need to get back in there. In order to do that, we got to take the front of the bumper off right here. It's actually not
actually the grill.
Yes, the grill. So, okay, correct. The grill, not the bumper. So there's just a few bolts we got to undo. It's not that big of a deal, honestly. Being the very unprofessional people we are, we're just not going to take the entire grill off, because honestly, all we really need to access is this down here, because that's what holds this in. we just need to get this spring in place, which hooks in there somehow. And then once that's in there, we can remove the old headlights. Well, we'll probably remove the old headlights first and then get the spring in there, and then kind of just finagle our way through this whole situation. While Mike and our other friend Sam over here is trying to figure out how to get the rest of that grill off, let's give a quick rundown of everything that needs to be done on this truck. Yeah, basically everything. This thing's a hot mess. It does run. That's how we drove it here. But, okay, let's just get to the list. So, first off, we need to do an oil change. Now, we got a kit from Blackstone Labs. We're going to send in the oil to the lab to have them analyze it and try to get a good idea of just how good or bad this engine's current state is. After that, we have got to take the wheels off on the front and the rear and check the pads, the rotors, the calipers, the brake lines. Underneath the engine, we also need to look at, we think it's the power steering pump that is starting to leak. We got some fluids coming down. We looked under the truck though. Although there is rust, it hasn't penetrated and caused any structural damage. This truck was, for its most part of its life, down south where there's not a lot of salt on the roads. But up here in the Midwest, that's kind of a problem. So we gotta make sure we keep an eye on that. And the tires have kind of a slow leak. So once this thing's registered and good enough to drive, we're gonna take it on to Discount Tire Co., have them take a look and see exactly what's causing the leak, and if need be, get some new tires. So that's the short list of things that need to be done right now.
At least the patch.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of take things as they go. We have got the headlight out of where it's supposed to be. But the thing about it is, yeah, the connections are a bit corroded from that junkyard H4 connection. We may replace that at some point. But for right now, we're just kind of going to get things working on the most basic level here. So you might be wondering, are we going to plug these HIDs in through the factory harness? Well, that is the short-term plan, but the long-term plan is we're going to get a proper relay harness, connect it directly to the battery, so that way we're not pulling tons of amperage through the factory wiring harness, which, let's be frank, is probably kind of a little shoddy and not in the best condition. So our methods are not always professional, but hey, if it works, it's not stupid, right? So here's the dealio. We got the factory headlight out, and Mike, why don't you show us really quick what we're working with here with this enclosure that these things got to sit in. Mainly this thing right here. So this is what houses the headlight. When a standard seal beam headlight goes bad, you replace the whole dang thing because it's kind of sealed into the housing. And this is what you screw. Well, this silver plate screws on top of this back plate, and that's kind of what holds it in place. With this HID setup, it's basically the same thing, only a few more components to it.
Wow.
And it's really important that...
A lot more wiring.
Yeah, it's really important that we aim these things properly, which is, you know, one of the reasons why we get that spring in there, but one step at a time.
Also, for all of you that do know, yes, I realize I'm doing this wrong. It's just the screws don't want to come undone.
Yeah, we're having a real go at the rust here because certain things, there's just no amount of penetrating fluid that's going to undo them. So, hey, make lemonade out of the lemons. So this is our new headlight. So let's give like a comparison shot. Why don't you grab the old sealed beam here and let's give it, well, yeah, give kind of a up and down situation here. So this is what it normally looks like, and that is what's going to look like. Now this also has cold cathode fluorescent lights as a halo, so a little extra feature there. Due to the wiring for the halogen headlights, we had to undo them and reconfigure the orientation of the wires to make them work properly with the HID setup. So we've got them kind of open up here, but you know, electricity takes the path of least resistance. Should be fine for the moment. So Mike, go ahead and give me the low beams. We got low beams, and then turn on the high beams. And then, as you can see, HIDs take a minute to warm up, but they are working, even on the factory wiring harness, which, you know, like I said, we're still going to change it over to a relay harness at some point, but, hey, it's not bad. Okay, so we got one side in, but we're not plugging up the halos right now because we're waiting on some watertight connections to come in the mail. So for right now, we're just going to show you what the halos look like by plugging up the leads for the halos to positive and ground on the battery. A little bit of a cumbersome thing to do with one hand on Mike's part, but
Oh.
there we go.
Seizure warning.
So that is what the halo will look like. It'll obviously be way more steady when we have a real connection on there, but yeah, that's kind of cool. Got the headlights installed for the most part. We're just gonna see how they look on the garage door outside. So, you'd be so kind as to open up the garage door. I'm gonna take a seat in the truck here.
And you dash.
But keep in mind, like I said, these lights are not aimed. We're just testing things out.
And Mike spills it back.
Let me see your face of shame, Mike. Mike, you killed your battery. We're gonna have to jump the damn truck. Okay, so maybe the battery just wasn't tightened down, Mike.
Turn the key.
Yeah, that'll do it. Ladies and gentlemen, the man of the hour, the brains of this operation. Yeah, lack of brains. Okay. All right.
Also, another thing that's going to end up being replaced. I have no door handle on the inside.
Nice. Okay. We'll give you a honk when we want you to open up the garage again.
There's no horn.
God, Mike, this truck is going to be. Hey, we'll just knock. So, backing up. Well, SpongeBob, you backed up. Okay, so these are the low beams, kind of all over the place.
We might want to close the windows.
Yeah. Oh
It's
man,
starting to drizzle.
it's manual. I don't know where the window roller is. Okay, and that, kids, is why we call it rolling up the windows. Okay. One side's connection is, not great. We're gonna have to work on that connection. But as far as the high beams go, it's something.
Yep. Uh-oh.
Well, I think the connection legit. The ground wire fell off on the other side again.
Well,
Mike.
I wonder if you take that as a hint.
Nice.
I might have to replace that.
Yeah. He has to roll down his window to open the door from the outside. Let's play with electrical connections in the rain. It's the black wire, Mike! Wow, those need to be adjusted pretty heavily. Look how high up the left one is. Come on, sit in here for a second. Get a feel. Here, wipe. Can you put the wiper blade on real quick? Get this rain out of the way. Okay. So, those are what the lights look like on the door. Obviously, they're going to need to be adjusted. That's not too big of a deal. There's adjustment screws, but
That's not too bad. That's a lot better than what it used to be.
yeah. So instead of kind of like just flooding the light, it is directed, and the hot spots appear to be relatively decent. You know, it's not a high-end projector by any means, but it's kind of better than stock. So go back to low beams. I mean, it's kind of scattered, but not terrible. We'll have to take it out on the road and test it once we get the connections actually fitted on there really secure. But until then, to be continued. Let's go get Sam to open the garage.
Yeah, because, well,
Yeah.
it didn't come with a working horn.
Nice.
But it gives me so many different options now. But what type of horn do I want to use? Do I want to be...
A jackass? You're gonna be a jackass.
That's one way to put it.
No, it's the only way to put it. Go get Sam to open the door. We've got the car truck jacked up, and we've taken the lug nuts off, and we have not seen the condition of the brake pads yet in person. So this, I guess, is the big reveal, and everything's so messy. Yeah, it's all over my hands, man.
Oh, hello.
Mike, find a place to put this. Tire, please. Okay, so let's look at the rotor. The rotor's got some beef to it here. They seem to have some meat on the bone, if I'm not mistaken. What say you, Sam?
Yeah, got some life to them yet.
Okay, cool.
Well, they're still going to be changed out soon.
Yeah. Well, when it's needed. Let's look at the brake line.
The flexible portion looks pretty good, actually.
Yeah. This,
It looks like it's been replaced recently.
maybe not too recently, but definitely not like super old. So, as far as bearings, we got something scraping on something. The bearings spin freely here, but if that's the bearing making that noise, or maybe something spinning in the back here.
I'd say something spinning in the back.
All right, so we're on the other side. We got the lug nuts taken off, and got a kind of in a spatial bind here. And you know, looking at the rotor immediately, nothing stands out as bad per se. And if I can have my flashlight. So we've got still got some meat on the bones.
How did that go again?
I will go again.
Never mind.
Okay, well, we still got meat on the bones. The rubber line seems intact. But so if you look at the strut right here, I don't know if you can zoom in a little on that. So it's got some grease and stuff over it, which could mean you have like a leak, because it's all over the strut and the spring, you know, the shock. So you could have a leak in your strut, which if the struts have never been replaced, the shocks and struts and etc., you know, That's not uncommon for, you know, an older vehicle if it's never been replaced. And is it obvious yet that I'm not a mechanic? But I have some background knowledge, but I know just enough to be dangerous. So earlier, when we had the wheel off, we tried checking for play. That's really not how it's supposed to be done. Now that the wheel's back on, we're gonna check for a little bit of play, right? So take hands on the wheels on both sides. See that? We got a lot of play in there. The next thing we're slated to do here is an oil change. Now, because we don't know how well this truck was taken care of with the previous owner, and this is the first oil change that we've personally done on this truck. It hasn't really been driven a lot since
I've got it, I've only done 63 miles.
So, not a whole lot, but might as well change the oil. It's been sitting for a while, so, you know, it's not a completely closed system. Oyster can get in there. But the point is, we got a kit from Blackstone Labs here, and we're going to send in a sample of the oil to try and get some idea of how intact or defunct the engine might be. Maybe defunct's not the right word. How screwed up the engine might be. Hopefully it's nothing, and we just get some normal results, but you know, the extra step might be good. Okay, let's see what all goes on down here.
All I did was break the elbow so far.
Under the car. This is a really awkward angle. So
I'm just waiting for it to start the...
if you push up on the bolt while you turn it, by the time it comes out, like put your finger on the bolt while you turn it, then you can just pull it out immediately, and then it won't start dripping until you release it.
I'm actually hoping for the drip first.
Okay, well, you do you, man. Okay, and there is the collection of oil. Simple. Yeah, your truck just gave a pee sample to the doctor. I guess now we can release the bolt a little more.
Oh shit!
Really? You didn't realize the extra force of it coming out was gonna make a mess and stream? You're cleaning that.
Yes, I realize that.
Every time, Mike. Every time you do this.
Shut up!
I swear to God, how is it only you that has this happen to them? You make my garage such a freaking mess, my dude. Yeah, I'm gonna get out of monitor this car, truck, whatever. We've got some new apple juice in the engine. In other words, new oil. It looks like apple juice. Of course, if it's royal purple, we call it grape juice. So, with that in mind, we're going to start her up, but watching Scotty Kilmer earlier today. I'm sure everyone knows Scotty Kilmer. He was talking about a quick way to kind of gauge whether or not you got a blown head gasket. And we're going to kind of see. Now the engine's cold, so we should be able to take the radiator cap off. Yep, not any problems. There we go. Now we do have radiator fluid, which is good. So if we start up the engine, basically, if the head gasket is shot, you'll feel air coming out of here. Now, my best guess as to why, and I'm your friendly backyard non-certified mechanic, but my best guess as to why is because in the block of the engine you have holes where coolant goes through, and that coolant is sent through the system to the radiator up here where it gets cooled down. So, in between the head and the block is the head gasket. If the gasket is shot, then every time you have that compressed gas exploding, you got a lot of volume of gaseous fumes coming out, and it'll seep through in between the gasket into where the coolant is supposed to be going through, and air will then get in the coolant line and you should be able to kind of feel it coming out where the coolant meets the radiator. But what do I know?
Yep.
Let's start it up and kind of see what happens.
But one thing about this engine, this is a cast iron block and a cast iron head.
Now, that being said, cast iron heads don't conduct heat very well. I don't know how that plays into all this.
But with it both being a cast iron block and cast iron head, it actually, the head gasket would last longer.
Theoretically, because there's less expansion and contraction, because steel, or, you know, it's not going to warp as much as aluminum. Or cast iron, sorry, not steel. A cast iron metal isn't going to warp as much from the expansion and contraction of heat and mess up the gasket. Theoretically, it's not like this is forced induction or anything, so, you know, but once again, backyard mechanics, not real mechanics, just goofing around here. So go ahead and start up the engine and screw
Also,
it, let's see.
Another thing to point out, something you won't see in many newer vehicles. Look how much room you have in this engine bay for working on things.
I guess. Let's crank up the engine though, and see if Scotty's advice holds true or if we're just really stupid. You know, I wouldn't discount the we're both really stupid kind of part.
You want to turn it off and turn it back on?
Go ahead, turn it off. Okay, so for what it's worth, if our backyard mechanic theory holds true, I didn't feel any air coming through the line. Although that being said, wouldn't the thermostat have to be open to transfer fluid from?
Are you sure you said cold?
Well, yeah, because if it's hot and you open it up, it's going to, because it's a pressurized system. Well, it is. Shit, I think it's pressurized, isn't it? Pretty sure. Okay, the theory that we're both stupid could very well be the biggest case here, but okay, basically, I didn't feel any air coming out, so let's just take that as a pseudo victory. Because what the hell, you know? Let's make sure this cap goes on nicely because it's being a derp. There we go. That's on there. Okay, so we got new oil in, and we did pretty much everything we set out to do today, but there's a lot more to be done. So in another video, when we have more parts, we'll take care of that, and I'm sure all of you who know what you're actually doing will look at us and cringe.
But
Go ahead, embrace the cringe.
But if we are doing something wrong,
Tell us. Holy crap, tell us. Seriously, this is less about a documentary of fixing up a car and more of a documentary of our failures. Because I don't even think we have the battery bolted down.
not right now we don't.
Not right now. Okay. There's a little bit of cleanup to do. We're not Mighty Car Mods. I'm not Scotty Kilmer or Eric the Car Guy. I'm a backyard mechanic.
But for me, I used to own, back when I was 18, a 96 version of this truck, but with the 5.7 liter Vortec V8. This is the 4.3 Vortec V6. Difference is between the 2 years. Carbureted engine for 95. 96 was the first year for fuel injected.
Okay.
So, we are both novices on this.
I've never actually worked on anything with a carburetor. I know it's supposed to be more simple, but it's just really foreign to me. And I drive a foreign car. So
Well,
that's pretty much it, guys. If you're, I don't know why you're sticking around if you're still here. Let's get this truck ready to get out of here, because
well, first, before I close it,